Hello, and welcome to the Unwatchables, a show where we talk movies. But not just any movies. Here we discuss what we call no-timers and one-timers. No-timers being movies that we recommend you never see, don't waste a moment of your lives on, and one-timers being movies that we recommend you see at least once. Today, our no-timer will be A Cure for Wellness, and our one-timer will be La La Land.
All right, perfect. Well, this is Marcus, and I'm joined with Kylie.
Hello.
All right, so I guess let's get started on A Cure for Wellness. So Kylie, what were your thoughts about A Cure for Wellness?
Overall, it was a very disturbing film. Most of the scenes were overly graphic, and I think it was honestly psychologically traumatizing. I'll give it that it was very suspenseful, but not worth it for all the disturbing factors that were involved with the plot and the visuals.
I feel like with this movie, like you're right, like the graphic nature of it was one big problem, and like it just didn't fulfill any of the promise of the movie. Like I remember when the movie came out, like maybe 6 months before, and watching trailers for it, I thought, oh, this could be really interesting. This is, kind of a weird culty feel, kind of. I thought in the trailers initially when I saw it, I thought it took place like in the 50s or 60s. So that it'll have like a retro vibe. It'll have a weird cult kind of vibe. And I haven't seen a movie like that in a while. And the fact that Gore Verbinski was doing it, I thought, oh, this could be interesting. I mean, I like quite a bit of the number of movies that Gore Verbinski's done. So I thought, oh, this could be interesting. All these elements put together. And then you watch and you're like, wow, like this movie just totally unrealized potential. And then the graphic nature, and yeah, it just, you walk out of that and you just think to yourself, like what on earth did I just watch? Go over some of this, the graphic stuff for you people that if you're listening to this now, you might think to yourself, well, I saw Cure for Wellness a year and a half ago and you barely remember it, but let's just go over some of the exact explicit scenes that you're like, that was in the movie that I watched with my eyes. Yeah.
Right. If you're sensitive to this, maybe tune out for a couple of minutes, but there is a scene where he is in this desensitization tank.
Yeah, Dane DeHaan, the main guy.
Yeah. And so he's in there, he's surrounded by eels, he's terrified, but his attendant doesn't notice that his blood pressure is going off the charts. She doesn't notice any of this because there's another attendant that walks in and she just exposes her breasts to him and he's furiously masturbating to her. So he doesn't notice a thing. Another scene that sticks out is the climax, of course. This is just the most graphic, most squirmy part of the whole film, in my opinion.
It's interesting you use that word after the masturbation scene. But anyways, continue.
So it's revealed that Jason Isaacs' character, the doctor, he's the Baron who supposedly died 200 years ago, and Hannah is his daughter, who he intends to impregnate. And so he rips her top off, basically, he fingers her, and he smells his fingers, which is all, in my opinion, those are scenes that could have been done or not done.
Easily not done.
Easily not done. I was going to say they could have been done more tastefully. They could have excluded a lot from them. But they would have had to completely, I think, rewrite them in order to make it much less disturbing.
I mean, like with both of those scenes, for example, I mean, it's like, here we have Gore Verbinski, the director. I mean, this film didn't have a huge budget. Dane DeHaan is not like that big of an actor, and Jason Isaacs isn't that big of an actor, so he had a large amount of creative control over the film, right? Here's a guy that has been in Hollywood for a while, did 3 big pirate movies, he did Rango, he tried to do, The Lone Ranger, even though Lone Ranger was a bomb, like here's a guy that's a commercial director, right? And he does A Cure for Wellness, and he's a commercial director, and those 2 scenes alone, it's like, what on earth are you doing? I mean, you're a big-time director. I mean, if you're Gore Verbinski, does that type of work ingratiate yourself to, like, have more movies given your way, right? I mean, you're Gore Verbinski, you're a guy that you want to direct a Marvel movie in the future, or you want to direct, the sequel to Aquaman or something like that. Like, why would you make something that's just so, like, distasteful and weird?
Yeah, it just makes me question who was this movie made for.
Yeah.
Because I don't know really anyone that enjoys things that are this twisted. I enjoy horror and I love thrillers. I love crazy plot twists, but I don't enjoy things that make me want to puke up my dinner, basically.
Yeah. No, I mean, yeah, like, I mean, a dad, basically trying to rape his daughter. Yeah, who's the audience for that? I mean, there are obviously, like you mentioned, there are people out there, there's the fans of the Saw movies, so there's the fans of Texas Chainsaw Massacre or Hostel, sorry. And those movies, yeah, they're very graphic and they're very horror, but I mean, there's like a rhyme or reason to them, right? Yeah, I mean, watching like a father molest his daughter, I mean, is the audience like pedophiles? Who are the people? And it's like, why even have that in the movie? But I guess to kind of segue into kind of another topic related to this movie is just Dane DeHaan. Like, I know that like in 2017, there was like a movement to push him onto American audiences, and he's just a horrible actor. I mean, I've never seen him in a movie I liked. Like when it was A Place Beyond the Pines, he was the worst part of that film. So A Place Beyond the Pines had like the 3 different stories that were like it was different. They were separated by years. And Dane DeHaan's character is, I think, the son of, I forgot who it was, if it was Bradley Cooper or Ryan Gosling. But he was terrible in that. He was terrible in Amazing Spider-Man 2 where he's Harry Osborn. Oh, yeah. Totally unlikable. And this movie, obviously terrible. And like Valerian, which came out last summer 2017, he was terrible in that. Like, he was really like bad. I don't think he's a good actor. I don't think he's dynamic. I don't think he's charismatic. I don't think he's even like particularly handsome by Hollywood actor standards level. Like, he is just terrible. There's nothing. Did you like anything about him in this movie, really?
No, well, because I think that, and I'm pretty sure that this was intentional because there were a lot of pointers that just made him an extremely unlikable character. And for instance, just in the very beginning, the opening scenes of the film, he's caught doing fraudulent things with his company. He is riding on the train and he's rude to the attendant. He has this tissue next to him and it's just covered in blood spots. So obviously gets bloody noses. He's probably doing a lot of cocaine. On his way, he's riding up to the sanitarium and he pops in a Nicorette gum, so he's just a super addictive person. He's not likable. He's rude to essentially every character in this movie. And he's just never level-headed, and it makes it really hard to reason with his logic and side with him throughout the film.
I mean, that's the whole point of like a protagonist in film. I mean, obviously, in real life, it's far more complicated with protagonists and antagonists. People are a little bit more gray in their actual daily interactions. But in a movie, people are supposed to be good because it makes it easy to root for them, and people are supposed to be bad, so it's easy to root for them. I mean, it's the same concept in professional wrestling. They have a thing called a heel, and they have a thing called a baby face. The heel is the bad guy that's just bad in all situations, and a baby face is good because he's good in all situations, right? Or he's the good guy. So in a film, because you only have 2 hours to tell a tale, and it's not, over the course of 5 years you're following people, it's supposed to be very simplistic. This guy's a good guy, but like what you mentioned, he's a person that in real life you wouldn't want to be with, be yourself, or even be around. He's like, why would you want to be around a person like him or be with a person like him, right?
Exactly. And we have to spend 2.5 hours with this character, which is another thing. This movie is far too long. And I mean, I do think it was shot beautifully. Honestly, it does look nice. It was shot in Germany, but it's supposed to be set in the Swiss Alps, and so there's just all these like gorgeous European type shots in the film, but none of it is worth it because we hate essentially all the characters involved. Yeah, and the plot.
Yeah, I mean, if you could take the way that the movie looked and the basic concept, and you just threw out every actor except for Jason Isaacs, maybe, then it could have been something then, but yeah, I mean, talk a little bit about the daughter relationship with Dane DeHaan and how old she's supposed to be. So, I mean, you mentioned the thing about the dad, but talk a little bit more about like her age and how old is she supposed to be in the movie.
Yeah, so Hannah and Dane DeHaan's character Lockhart, they have this really interesting dynamic because essentially at the sanitarium they have this elixir that they've developed, and so everyone there is likely hundreds of years old, namely Hannah and the Baron, which is Jason Isaac's character. And so it's really confusing because at the end of the film, Hannah gets her first period, so she becomes a woman. But throughout the film before that, there were all these implications of her and Lockhart having a romantic relationship, because there's a scene where he's having a dream about her and she's just fully naked in a bathtub and she's surrounded by eels. So she's being sexualized throughout the film. There's a scene where they go into town and they're at the bar and she's dancing with men in the bar. And she seems to be acting a lot older, but she looks incredibly young. And
she acts young.
Yeah, it's confusing because in certain ways she acts young, but then with her chemistry with Lockhart on screen, it seems as though they're romantically interested with each other. That being said, she looks like she's 12. She is 25, so she was 23 or 24 when they were filming. But she looks prepubescent, which I guess she was supposed to, but her age is so ambiguous. I was really confused about it throughout the whole film. Were you at all?
Oh yeah, no, I mean, for sure, I thought that she carried herself like a kid. I mean, I understand, like, in real life, you know, you run into women, or maybe your girlfriend, or maybe you yourself, like, this, you know, like, you have, like, a youngish type look, which is totally fine. That's normal. But, like, in this film, the actress has a younger look. I thought in a number of scenes she kind of carried herself in like a way that I feel like if I had seen her like at a Target or something, I would assume that she was like 15 years old or 14 years old. And yeah, it does seem very weird that with Dane DeHaan, with his kind of character, the kind of pairing of the two of them in a sense, because I mean, obviously her father, Hannah, the girl, her father's obviously has like a predatory relationship with her. Obviously, as we mentioned earlier, like he literally tried to prey on her. It means relationship predatory. But like Dane DeHaan too, also being just mentally and just personality wise to seem like so much older. That also kind of let off a really weird kind of dynamic, I thought.
Yeah, it was kind of a predatory vibe that I got as well.
Yeah, and it just really, I mean, ultimately all these things, you know, put together, you just have to think to yourself, like what is this movie saying? And like, what's the point of watching the movie? I mean, I'm not saying every movie has to have a big grandiose message or morality tale to it, but I think at the end of the day, you do have to sell a movie like a product, right? I mean, it's like the same thing if like Doritos, if they created a Dorito that had no taste, then they can't expect people to buy it, right? So like in the same sense for this movie, like who is the movie for? Who would find it entertaining? And like, what is it trying to say? Because this is one of those movies, if you look at the budget wise, it's a movie that is allegedly supposed to be trying to say something, right? This isn't a big budget Captain America movie where the whole point of it is just action and merchandising. This is a film that's created to make people think and to make people think and to talk about it. But nothing is said in the movie. Nothing is said, nothing's accomplished, and it's just Gore Verbinski being weird.
Yeah.
I think.
It kind of loops around too because this is another plot point that really didn't add up to me. There's 2 times where Lockhart gets sucked into this whole brainwashed aspect and he ends up just going along with the treatment twice. It happens twice and Hannah brings him back both times. But it's confusing because why doesn't that only happen once? He seems to buy into the fact that he's not well twice. And so he just kind of goes on this loop, and it makes me wonder why they did that. Were they trying to make this movie 2.5 hours long? Which is just a problem because the major plot point and the whole point of the climax is that it's been the Baron this entire time, and that story was only mentioned by his cab driver in the very beginning of the film, in the first 15 or 20 minutes or so. And so your audience is expected to remember that for essentially about 2 hours until the very end when it's brought up again finally.
That's a very fair point. I mean, obviously too, there's a lot of, I guess, literature written about film, the idea of like diminishing returns. And that being that if a film says something like a major plot or a major point or theme one time, it's the most effective in a one-time setting. But the more you bring it up and the more you play off of it, then it basically it results in less of a reaction each time that it happens. So like what you mentioned with Dane DeHaan, like saying it once and having Hannah save him once is actually, it's more consequential and more important than it happening twice. It's happening twice, it's like, oh, it's happening again.
Yeah, it made me wonder because you never see on screen them feeding any sort of pharmaceutical medication to the patients. It's always just water therapy and such. And so you're never actually given those answers as to why he fell into that cycle. It's just sort of open-ended.
It totally is. I just feel like with this movie, again, if you're a person and I don't know, you're at your house and you're on Netflix or Hulu, wherever service, however you come across this movie, it's just, this is, again, one of those films that if you were watching this film and your brother or your friend or your mom, if your mom walked into your room and you're watching this film, she'd ask you, like, what on earth are you watching? This is the kind of film you don't want to watch with, like, your mom. You don't want to watch with your dad. You want to watch with your sister or brother. Like, you don't want to watch this with, like, anybody that you would want to associate yourself with in real life, really. I mean, honestly, like, if you know this stuff going into it, it's kind of like uncomfortable. It's weird, especially if you're like a girl and your dad watching this film. That's very kind of like, I wouldn't want to do that if I had a daughter. I wouldn't want to watch this movie with her. I wouldn't watch this movie under any circumstances. I mean, I would rather watch stills of this movie. Just look at like stills of images of this film. You'd get more from that than you would this movie. There's all this wasted potential, kind of just like nastiness, I guess you could say. And it's just, I mean, your soul and your mind leaves this film being very drained. Like, it's not a film that's very edifying for your eyes, your mind, your soul. I mean, you just walk out of that and you're just like, oh my gosh, like, why? what did I gain out of this? There's nothing to gain. There's nothing to see. Hopefully Dane DeHaan is not an actor in America anymore. I mean, I don't want the guy to lose a job, but like, he should make films that are abroad, not American films. I hope that Gore Verbinski hopefully he can take over Guardians 3 or something like that. Just give this man a normal movie. You let him have any creative control. He gets weird, like with Weatherman. Gets weird in this. Just put him on a normal movie. Get Dane DeHaan out of movies. And that's all you got to take away from this movie, in my opinion.
That's true. The one thing that I can give this movie is that it's actually beautifully shot. I think that the whole aesthetic of the castle and of the Alps, and there's just a few shots that really take your breath away, but very much not worth it. Definitely do not watch this film with your family, and definitely don't watch it alone, because either way, you're going to be pretty traumatized.
I guess watch it with like a weird neighbor of yours if he's into weird stuff. That's the only person you even want to watch it with. It's a guy that has like, maybe if the guy owns the movie Cannibal Holocaust, maybe watch it with that guy. But if you're a normal person, don't watch it. All right, so that's it for the no timer. Now we're gonna do La La Land as a one timer. So the second film we're gonna talk about is La La Land, and it being a one timer. Kylie, what are your thoughts about La La Land, and what makes it a one timer?
I think it's a one timer because, even though you may not agree, I do like the actors in this film. I think that Emma Stone and Ryan Gosling have good chemistry together. They've been in movies together before. I think that the storyline is pretty good, but overall I didn't think that it was really anything super special. I didn't think that it really deserved all the attention that it got. I think it was a pretty regular LA story about wannabes, and that's pretty much it.
La La Land, I think, pound for pound, minute for minute, is maybe the most overrated movie of the decade. Like, it truly is just so overrated. I remember when I watched the movie, I remember there was all the hype. I watched it maybe like a week or two after it came out. There's all this hype around it. I had friends that were talking about how much they wanted to see it and how great they thought it was and everything like that. And I watched it, and it just did not resonate at all for me. I mean, I understand the concept. I mean, living right outside of LA, literally right outside of LA, I've been to LA hundreds of times. I mean, just the concept itself of people coming to LA wanting to, quote, like, live their dreams and become like famous, I guess, like being like a singer or actor or something like that. I mean, I'm not saying that it's like a bad goal or dream, but it certainly is not like a moral ambition where you look at that and you say, oh yeah, like that's something that I can totally get behind. Like that's like amazing. I think it's such a great goal. Like I do not have that feeling. And I think a lot of people that live in LA or outside of LA, I think a lot of people that are normal people that live in the greater LA area, like they're plumbers or they work in a corporate office or whatever they are self-employed, whatever they do, whatever you do, if you're listening and you live in the greater LA area, your goal in life is not to be a professional celebrity. Like most people do not want to be that. I don't think a lot of people want that to be like their job or them to, be seen by millions of people on screen or whatever, listen to millions of people on the radio. And I feel like this movie, it kind of makes LA people just seem really like superficial, really materialistic, very much like they're all like all of our lives are centered upon making it in the industry. And I mean, if you do want to get in the industry, obviously that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But the belief that all people here want to do that, it's a little insulting. And I think with this movie, if you're a person, you live in the LA area and you want to get involved in the industry, I think you will love this movie because it totally speaks to maybe who you are or what you want to do. But if that's not what you want to do, then like this movie, yeah, it's a movie that it's wrapped in like poserdom. Like posers or wannabes that want to make it in the industry. They wrap this movie around and they tie a nice bow on it with the nice, shots and, the dancing in the street and the colorful outfits in the street. And then you kind of strip the movie down and you're like, the movie was like, what was it trying to tell you? Like, what was it trying to say? What was it trying to communicate? And yeah, it's just so, like commercial and just like, eh.
Yeah, I think speaking to that, I think that it's problematic just because the people who you wanted to end up getting together, they don't end up together, even though, they both accomplished their dreams. So maybe it's trying to say, you can have what you want, but at a price. But then you look at it again and you can't really say that because Emma Stone's character, she married a dreamy man, she had a child, she became a big star, she pretty much had everything she wanted. She just had this one lost love along the way.
Yeah, and that's another thing too with this kind of film is that I understand the concept of a movie where, the love is, the people do not connect. And I think, I most of the time, 95 times out of 100, I'd rather watch a story in which the man and the woman that love each other end up together. Like, I prefer to watch that story the most, like guy and girl coming together that love each other. But occasionally, I don't mind watching a movie or a story that has the love not come to fruition, or two people that love each other end up not together. Like, I'm okay with watching that story. But like in this movie, it just seemed like it was for such a stupid reason that they weren't together. I mean, that's another thing too. So both the characters, obviously, right? They both of their careers end up really taking off. He tours with John Legend. He's making money as a touring musician. He wants to open up this jazz club. Emma Stone is going to get this. She got that audition that led to the role that she has to go to Paris to film or whatever. And it's kind of like, I don't know, like they both got like everything that they wanted except for like the love. And like Ryan Gosling, yeah, I mean, it's like he loves her and he's sad without her. But like you mentioned, I mean, Emma Stone ends up marrying a guy. She has a kid, and it just seems so like artificial, the fact that they weren't together. Like they only ended up separated was because Ryan Gosling said, "Oh well, I'll be here when you get back from filming." Well, if she filmed for 6 months, he was still there, and she never even made it. Like the film doesn't indicate that there was any reaching out of one person or the other to actually connect or reconnect. And it's just kind of like, oh, she left because she was going to be an actress and then she gave up on love. I mean, I feel like that would be the true meaning of this movie, would be if her or Ryan Gosling had the opportunity to choose their career or the love of their life, right? And then that's where a real movie comes in with a conflict, is that you say, here's a dream that I've had my whole life, but now I've met a person that I love so much more than the dream that I'm willing to sacrifice the dream for the love of my life, right? That's what a movie's supposed to tell you. But in this movie, it was no. They said, "Oh, we're going to focus on the career part." And then that to me also left a really bad taste in my mouth. I was like, what? Like, they don't end up together because like they just chose their careers over each other, and that's the moral case of the movie? I mean, like literally, like there's a movie, I actually think it's a great movie. It's called Family Man. I think it's The Family Man. It was with Nicolas Cage. It came out in like 2001, 2002. But the plot of that film is that Nicolas Cage is this high power executive or high up executive at some like Wall Street firm, and he's a bachelor. He lives alone. He has like random women that he sleeps with and things like that. And in the film, basically Don Cheadle's like an angel type character comes to him and says, like, I want to show you what your life would have been like had you chosen to be with the woman that you actually loved instead of going down this track of being a multimillionaire, New York, whatever, exec. And that's what the whole film is about, is him seeing his life, what it would be like as a normal, quote, guy. You know, he's married, has a couple kids, and he sees his life, what it could have been like. And in that movie, he comes to the conclusion that earthly riches weren't worth what he could have had in a loving wife and the kids and an actual meaningful relationship. That's what that whole movie's about. At the end of the movie, he decides to go and live that kind of life, like get back with that woman and make a real go of things with being in a loving and caring relationship. In this film, yeah, it's just, well, it just shows our dreams, and it turned out we both chose correctly.
Yeah, but in the end of the film, there's also that sequence where they do end up together, and it's this whole long montage of them. You know, she runs up to him after he plays, and then they kiss, and then it's this whole montage, and they have a kid, and they're in love, and they get married. And then it just brings you right back to reality, and they just make eye contact and part ways, I'm assuming, forever.
Yeah, but we're seeing what could have been, and instead we saw something that wasn't good.
Yeah, I didn't really understand the point of that last sequence. That was another thing that just screamed mediocrity, because they gave us just a fool's ending, and then they brought us crashing back down to earth. I mean, what were other elements of this film that you thought were just, you know, overplayed and kind of mediocre?
At least an element of all storytelling is supposed to tell universal truths, but wrapped in a way that's consumable for everyday people. So, you know, a story like Little Red Riding Hood or something like that. Like there's a deeper meaning to it than just the surface level, right? Like the stories, or even children's stories, they're meant to communicate a bigger idea to people, right? And it's like with film, I think especially when it comes to the concept of love, like in real life, you might be faced with a situation where you do have to focus on your school or your work, or, you know, you're offered a great opportunity to go to another state, and, you know, it's very good for your career, and you're in a tough situation. You have to choose between maybe someone you love and then having this career job, right? And, you know, I'm of the opinion that I think that film is supposed to be able to communicate to you something like, hey, you know, earthly riches are good, but interpersonal relationships with people, especially someone that you love, is supposed to trump just monetary gain, right? And I feel like, I don't know, I can't get over that for this film, is that this film is basically telling you that, like, commercialization or commercial pursuits are better than, I guess, moral ones or love ones. Like, I think in my mind, if somebody was to choose a slightly better job over being with someone that they love, I would kind of look at them less than if it was inverted, right? But I think, to go back to your point about what also makes this movie kind of mediocre, I just feel like, yeah, the singing and the dancing and, like, the theme song, they played it so many times that, I felt like I was getting hit in the head with a hammer. Da-da-da-da-da-da. And it was just so many times that, I just felt like I got hit in the frontal lobe with a small hammer.
Yeah, and there weren't even really that many variations of it. It was pretty much all just on the piano, and so it was just throughout the entire film. And so I think that they kind of missed out. They could have had, you know, a pretty fantastical score, I think, for a movie like this, for a musical, you know, minus the singing and dancing. They could have had, you know, some sort of beautiful jazz or orchestral, you know, pieces throughout the film, but it's pretty much just this song over and over. And another thing that I just didn't really enjoy about the film is that I thought that the dialogue was pretty dry. I didn't think that any of the characters stood out as having, like, a memorable vernacular, anything special about their characteristics, you know, like about their personality. And so that was just another letdown for me, because there was so much hype and people seemed to love these characters, but, you know, I went into the movie thinking that they would be these incredibly special people, and then they weren't. They totally fell flat to me.
Felt like they were already dating in the film before they even started dating. Like, it didn't feel like it was, like, a new or fresh thing. And maybe that's a good indicator in real life. Like, if you meet a person and you already feel like you've already built up that kind of rapport that you've already been dating, even though you've just met them, maybe that's an indicator in real life, but I don't know. But in the film itself, the way that they were talking and kind of like teasing with each other at like, even like, for example, when they're at that pool party or whatever, right? That house party, and Ryan Gosling is just performing with the band there. I mean, the way that they were talking to each other, interacting with each other, it almost felt like they had already been dating for a while. And in reality, that was like the second time they'd ever even seen each other, right?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, I feel like the director, I just feel like he almost just took it for granted that you knew that they were going to be together. So he didn't really like build up or earn it. Like, it didn't feel like it was an earned like relationship. It was just, these people are going to just get together and that's it.
Yeah, I agree with that. I guess, though, there are some things that make this movie a one-timer, so to switch the direction
I guess we can't just slam it and say you should watch it once. Yeah.
I know, it did win a couple Academy Awards, so
it wasn't all bad.
Yeah, we have to give it something. We talked a little bit earlier about the scene where they're dancing throughout the stars, and that's a really, really beautiful scene.
That is. Like when they're in that, is it a planetarium? Mm-hmm. Wherever they're at, the Griffith Observatory, when they're like dancing. I mean, that's a great scene. You're right. Like, this movie, it has a lot of homages. Like, if you're a fan of old school Hollywood or whatever, the silver age of Hollywood or golden age, where you like wide shots, you like colorful outfits, you like dancing and singing, then this movie might be for you. I mean, I'm not really a big fan of musicals, but I think this is better than maybe other musicals that have come out recently. Like, I think it was better than Hairspray that came out 11 years ago, or 2007, John Travolta. I think it's more watchable than Les Mis. I like Les Mis maybe more as a movie, but the singing and Russell Crowe singing is just very exhausting. Like, I feel more exhausted doing that than I do like I don't know, like lifting weights. Watching that movie is exhausting. Like, I walked out. I was like, oh my gosh, I feel like I had stood on my feet for 8 hours straight watching Les Mis. But like, yeah, for this film, there are things about it that are good. Like, I mean, I like the wide shots. I like the concept of people being in love in LA and being together. I like that. I mean, that's why when they're actually dating, I like that whole aspect. And it is very watchable. And I mean, even if you're not like a hipster type or an LA type, I think there's things, the way that the city looks in the film, I think is very attractive or very aesthetically pleasing. But yeah, I mean, those are all good things about it. And I'm sure, you know, if you've seen the movie, maybe your girlfriend or whatever, maybe she like really loves it. I mean, it's not like terrible. Like, you could totally watch this film one time and be fine with it. Now, I mean, I know people, I mean, I went on a few dates with a girl like last summer that she went to a showing of La La Land at the Hollywood Bowl. Now, that's definitely way overboard. If you're dating a person like, oh, let's go watch La La Land at the Hollywood Bowl, just have to say, I'm going to pass. But yeah, I mean, if it's turned on TNT and, you know, you're playing a Switch, or, you know, you're just watching the game, or you're just like jerking around on like your phone and stuff, then like, yeah, it's fine. This film is fine in a vacuum, that it's not like shoved down your throats. Like, when the movie came out, it was just shoved down your throat like a puppet master, just like, it's great. And it's just like a whole handful of mashed potatoes in their hand, and they're just stuffing it down your throat, and you're like, I'm full. Like, this movie was just crammed down our throats, and like, it's fine, it's adequate, but like, it was just blown out of proportion. Like, I don't know if the Academy or whatever studio released it, I don't know if they wanted to make it a point that like it was an Academy Award movie that made money, because usually Academy Award movies don't make money, at least in the last 10 years or whatever. And this film made money, so they're like, yeah, like, look at this, critics love it and people love it, so they kept pushing it. But yeah, it certainly was overrated. I mean, it's not terrible, but it's certainly overrated.
Yeah, I agree with all of that, honestly. I did see The Greatest Showman. Also, I think that was earlier this year that I saw that. And I'm not a fan of musicals, so I might be slightly biased in this, but I think that whether or not you're paying homage, I think if you're going to make a musical, you have to make it slightly more grand. I think even though it was sort of reminiscent of, you know, whatever, 30s through 50s, like Singing in the Rain, for instance, I still think that there has to be a point to the music and the singing. And for this film, it just kind of fell flat for me. And especially because, not to hark on them too much, but because I don't think that Emma Stone is a great singer. I don't think Ryan Gosling is a great singer. But I do love that they showcased his piano playing talents. Or if he's not actually talented, they did a very good job of making it look like he was.
Yeah.
Because I did like the music in the film. I would have liked to hear a little bit more of the score, but I think that the songs that they did have, I did like them. I enjoyed the music. But
well, do you think like if you recasted this movie, do you think could you have gotten more out of other actors, like singing and dancing oriented people?
I think that in terms of singing, yes, but also for me, the choreography fell flat for the dancing. And I understand it was supposed to be simple, just tap, but towards the end, they did have this really grand set of, I think it was supposed to look like LA, Hollywood Boulevard or something like that, and they had maybe 20 to 30 people all dancing, and they were dancing through them, but that part of the scene only lasted for maybe 10 to 15 seconds, and I thought it was going to be this big grand dance number, but it ended up just kind of being nothing. And so I think in terms of dancing, not really. In terms of singing, yes, I think that they could have benefited from someone that could
sing a little better,
had a little bit more soul in their voice.
Maybe like a stage actor.
Yeah.
I think with this movie, I feel like, I don't want to like totally dump all over, but the beginning scene where they're on the freeway and they all get out of their cars and the choreography there, I honestly think that like that would have just been an amazing like YouTube video. Like I honestly think like that would have been one of those videos where it's like, wow, this looks really good. And I don't know. Also too, it kind of reminds me of all those people getting out of their cars on the freeway in that scene. It kind of reminds me of those ads. I think it's Chevy. Where those guys like he's standing in front of like 4 people and he's like, what would you say if I told you that we won the safest award 5 years in a row? And the people are like, oh my gosh. And he pulls like a rope and there's like 5 trucks on top of each other. You've ever seen those ads? Like, if you've seen those ads, I wish the guy that does it, that's all the ads are. It's like, oh, we have a new Chevy, whatever, Elantra. And it's like, he opens the door and it's like a guy's grandmother comes out and he's like, Grandma, what are you doing here? And like, those are the ads. Like, I feel like maybe those were born by watching like how stupid it was like in like La La Land. Or not stupid, but at the time it was cool. But now it's been totally done to death. Like, the idea of all these people getting out of their cars and singing and dancing on whatever freeway they were on. Like, I don't know if it was the 134 or whatever they were on in the movie. Or supposed to be on. But like, yeah, that's another thing too. If you live in LA or you've driven to those places or you live in the greater LA area, driving in LA is just, it's like taking a trip to hell. Like the fact that people getting out and dancing is just so not like what actually happens out here. Like miserable driving out here. If you listen to this and you don't live in the greater LA area, my gosh, like you better come here totally like not, you can't have a short fuse. You have to be very like calm because oh my gosh, it's a nightmare. It's a total nightmare driving out here when there's traffic. Like the idea. I guess maybe he was trying to say something like, oh yeah, look at all these people. Like if with the song in your heart and love in the air, it can change all the driving. But like later on after that singing number happens, Emma Stone's driving and like Ryan Gosling flips her off or whatever.
She flips him off.
Yeah, she flips him off, and it's like, oh my gosh, like what great characters right off the bat. Like they're flipping each other off on the freeway. I don't know.
Yeah, sorry, I just wanted to bring it back really quick because you asked me if they brought in Broadway actors, if that would have made the singing better. And just an example, I brought up The Greatest Showman, and actually they brought in Kayla Settle, who's like this amazing Broadway performer, and she just sung her heart out in that movie. And like I was talking about, that The Greatest Showman is a lot more grand, and I just think it was a lot more in your face, a lot more well done, a lot more theatrical, which is how I think that musicals should be. And maybe this film wasn't made for audiences like me that prefer the old-timey classic wide shot simplicity, but I just think that to keep audiences today engaged, you just have to do a little bit more than that. But going back to the traffic, I think that was ridiculous because LA drivers are mean. They're confident,
they're horrible,
they're cocky, and they're just rude when they need to be because they have places to go,
I have a friend that lives in LA, and like whenever like we go out there, yeah, it's like you're going off, you're saying 15 curse words, you're totally going off, you're like swearing at old people. It's miserable driving out there. And like I think that this harkens back to the whole idea of like this whole film, the idea of like the LA lifestyle and making it big in LA. And it's just like if you're not from the greater LA area and like you never like lived here, you're not from here, like you're not born here, like you have no relatives out here, you're not dating anybody out here, you should probably never come out here. I mean, maybe take a vacation once, but unless you're from this area, I don't know if you're going to have fun. I mean, even like walking down like, Hollywood Boulevard or walking down the Walk of Fame, there's homeless people everywhere. Like there's homeless people, there's people that want to fight, there's people that defecating on the streets. There's like a homeless population of like 50,000 people in LA. I mean, it's not like, it's cool to visit like once in your life, but unless you're from this area or you're, again, like I said, you're related to someone, you're dating someone, this isn't an area that you should want to live in. Even renting an apartment in LA, it's like, yeah, I mean, that's cool that, you're walking distance from, I don't know, like the Chinese theater or something like that, but like, it's not worth it. It's not, like, I don't think it's worth it at all. I mean, being out there, every time I ever go out there, I always think, man, I am so miserable right now driving out here. Like I went out there for Thanksgiving and like, it's not worth it. Don't do it. Like if you live anywhere else and you don't hate where you live, just stay where you live.
Yeah, I think that maybe the only thing that's kind of worth seeing in Hollywood is the Chinese theater. Otherwise, just don't go into Hollywood. It's pretty gross. There's only one nice-ish strip, and there's homeless people all over that as well. So
yeah, there's hypodermic needles everywhere. Like, I mean, even like too, in your mind, like if you're, I don't know, you live in like Idaho or something like that, you might not necessarily know where everything is located. I mean, like even like Disneyland isn't actually like, it's like a little ways away from, like the Walk of Fame and stuff like that. It's like not even like super close. I mean, this is not, I don't know. It's a little overhyped. This movie's overhyped. Hollywood's overhyped. And I think I like this movie less because it overhypes Hollywood. And yeah, I mean, Hollywood makes movies. We're talking about movies. I like movies, but don't pursue living in Hollywood, and don't let this movie talk the crap into your mind of like, all your dreams are going to come true and stuff like that.
I think that movie magic is real, but LA magic is definitely not real.
Yeah,
the scene and the hype around LA is not real, and this movie tries to paint a picture that it is. So keep that in mind if you see this film. It is worth watching one time.
All right, well, I guess, thanks for listening to this episode. Like we said, Cure for Wellness, just a lot of just weird stuff. It's just, don't waste your time on it. There's other things. Literally not watching a movie would be better than watching that movie. And La La Land, I mean, now we're a couple years removed from the movie itself. I think that people aren't so, like, crazy about it. Like, I mean, people still probably talk about it, but, like, I just remember 2 years ago, the hype was just extreme in LA. It was just revolting, a little disgusting. I think that's kind of died down. Maybe people can look at this movie now with, like, actual true opinions and not just, like, influenced by what other people are saying. But, yeah, I mean, certainly, it's worth watching once, yeah. If you somehow didn't watch it, and, whatever happens, you're at someone's house and, all of a sudden Cards Against Humanity turns into let's watch La La Land. I mean, yeah, you'll be okay watching. You're not going to hate it.
Yeah, I don't think anyone will hate it. It's worth seeing once.
All right, well, thank you for listening, and turn back next week when we have another episode out.